Good afternoon. Welcome to this week's episode of Safety Culture Solutions, brought to you by Safety Culture Strategies. I'm Mike Kinney, your host. Each week we have lots of perspectives we're so thrilled to have in studio with us. Sometimes we do them remotely. We've actually had guests from Nicaragua as well as Canada, so we're kind of going that international flavor. The one thing I find consistent in all the themes is how important it is to have leadership engagement and the willingness of those leaders to learn, accommodate, change so that they can start building effective trust. With us today is Major General John Ryansky. He's U.S. retired, and he is the author of a series of books, Iron Sharpened Leadership. Yeah, that'll get your attention. We're also going to be talking about the ride of our lives in a little bit, and he's a leadership consultant, international speaker, and executive coach, and he serves as CEO of Leader Grove, LLC. He is also a non-resident senior fellow with the Transatlantic Leadership Program at the Center for European Policy Analysis. There's a mouthful. A senior mentor with the United States Army's Mission Command Training Program and director of the Leadership Academy for Students and Athletes at Lebanon Valley College. And we'll be doing lots of discussions with John, what all he's involved in. The Writer of Our Lives book. I think we're going to have a little fun with that before the show's over. So John, welcome aboard, sir. How are you doing today?
Mike, I am doing fantastic. Thank you for inviting me to be your guest.
Absolutely. So tell me a little bit about, if I'm in my notes, about Leader Grove LLC. What is that about, and why should leaders be interested?
Yeah, well, I spent 40 years in the Army and in the Pennsylvania Army National Guard. I retired in 2019, and when I retired a couple of years ago, I decided to put to work for the benefit of others my leadership experience. So Leader Grove LLC is a leadership consulting firm. I do leadership training, keynote addresses, executive coaching. As you mentioned, I've written a couple of books since 2019, and just trying to get my message about character-based servant leadership out there to help others learn from many of the mistakes I've made over my 40 years of leading men and women.
Well, thank you very much for your service to our country, sir. God bless what our troops do every day. It yes. is a phenomenal, especially an individual like yourself. You had a fair amount of skin in the game for a long time. So as we look at this broad perspective of culture and leadership and what that means in the world of safety, so what's like one or two key attributes of a positive safety culture that the leaders say, we're on the right path with where we're going as a company?
Yeah, I would say, Mike, and I believe you kind of hit on this in your introduction, leaders have to be involved. If the senior leader is not involved in the safety culture of the organization, it's probably just not going to happen. And to, talk about safety continually. As a matter of fact, there's something we use in the Army. It's called an operations order. And one of the key elements of that operations order, I felt whenever we were going to do training or actually real world combat operations, was to focus on the safety aspect of what we were going to do in our operation, as well as anything else. So again, just continuing to talk safety, putting that emphasis on safety, and getting people at every level to keep that at the forefront of their mind.
Because I think when you're out there in some of these in theater situations, you have some significant potential hazards.
Well, in the Army, there's a lot of moving pieces. There's a lot of heavy equipment. Our tanks, our Bradley fighting vehicles, our Paladin, our artillery weapon systems, and many other ways that soldiers could get hurt, let alone when you're serving in combat when the bad guys are also trying to kill you. So just really important to keep everybody focused on that safety culture.
So if you're sitting down with the leaders, you've done that many times, what is one of the key skills that any leader needs to focus on to assist with their positive safety culture?
Yeah, I think the big thing is risk analysis.
Really?
And determining what's the probability of a particular risk occurring. Once you determine what that probability is, what's the severity
Yes.
of that risk, or what is the impact of that risk, and then focusing first on the risks that are high probability, high impact, and then think of ways you could mitigate those risks down, because in the military you have to continue the operation. You can't just stop an operation because the risk is high. You've got to figure out ways to mitigate that risk down. And there's various ways you could do that. You could do that on the job too, whether you're running a construction company or any other type of organization. And then you focus on those first. And if you get down to the risks that are low probability, low impact, there's very little energy you have to put into those. The main focus of your energy should be in the high impact, high probability risks.
Right on target. And for our viewers, I'm a big fan of Mill Standard 882. I kind of like the Charlie version a little better than the Delta. But that's what I found, John. I've always enjoyed having that one at my side as I'm working with different clients, because I think that Mill Standard does a great job of just understanding how you can combine that severity and probability, and that way you've been the ones that are really important and how to keep focus on them.
And Mike, I think the recent pandemic situation, obviously we're still going through the pandemic, I guess, but a year and a half ago when it was really raging, just shutting down businesses is not the answer. I think any business owner would agree with that. So you've got to figure out a way to do things safely as you possibly could in a high risk environment, whether that be a pandemic, whether that be risks in a factory where they're manufacturing equipment and in areas where there's large furnaces and machines that cut metal and those type of things, or whether you're out at a construction site. A lot of ways to get hurt when you're working around heavy equipment, and you can't just not do the job. You've just got to figure out how you can do that job as safely as possible.
And it's ironic, I've talked with companies over the years about a black swan event, the ones it's kind of hard to imagine. And I think candidly what's happened with the epidemic, the worldwide pandemic, is a great example of black swan. It caught a whole bunch of people by surprise. And what I've seen also, to pontificate a tad, is managers that candidly probably weren't that good a manager, having to now work with their people individually, and remotely, probably made some of their challenges more obvious. Is that a good way to put it?
Yeah, Mike, I think something many of us have learned is the importance of encouraging initiative within an organization. And I think the businesses that struggled the most are the businesses that did not encourage initiative within their workforce. And then before you knew it, with the pandemic, people were working remotely. People weren't able to work as closely physically together as they had been used to. And the companies and organizations that had been promoting initiative and allowing people at various levels in the organization to demonstrate initiative, I think were the ones that succeeded. So, as a division commander, where I commanded 15,000 soldiers, one thing I really try to get across in my commander's intent, which is essentially, the purpose I was trying to put out there for our force, is that leaders and people within the organization, soldiers within the organization at every level, had to be encouraged to demonstrate initiative. And you need to do that in a steady state environment or in a peacetime environment, if we're talking about the military, because when you get to a situation like combat, or you get to a situation like a black swan event, like you mentioned, like a pandemic, if you haven't been encouraging initiative along the way, it's going to be pretty hard for those working for you to automatically start demonstrating a culture of initiative.
Yes. You're absolutely correct. Before we go to break, I want to learn a little bit more about Iron Sharpened Leadership. I think it's your latest book. Can you give us a little thumbnail of what this is about? Because I need it on my bookshelf, and I'm pretty sure my viewers do as well.
Yeah, Iron Sharpened Leadership is a leadership book that I published in June of 2021, just a few months ago. And it really focuses on my leadership philosophy of character, competence, and resilience. So the book is peppered with stories from my operational experience, lessons I have learned, and it focuses on those three elements I just talked about: the importance of a leader being a character-based leader, having strong values, understanding that they need to care for their followers. And then when I talk about competence, I talk about things like putting out and communicating your purpose, communicating itself, developing other leaders, having the courage to make decisions. And then in terms of resiliency, that's where I talk about the elements that would help a leader develop their own resiliency, and also how a leader could help develop resiliency in their followers, and also help develop a more resilient organization. So organizations could bounce back from adverse circumstances.
So, and you and I chatted about this a couple of weeks ago, and I had to be candid with my career. I've been so fortunate to work shoulder to shoulder with retired generals, major generals, NASA shuttle pilots. And I got to be candid, sir, there is something to me, intrinsic of leaders at your level, high levels of command in the military. You just have this incredible passion and commitment to the safety of your personnel.
Yeah, and again, I think it gets back to our military values, and one of our military values is certainly to take very seriously the men and women that we have in our charge. We feel very responsible for their welfare, for their well-being, and safety is just a big part of that. And I will say that, I did have the honor of commanding 5,000 Marines and soldiers over in Ramadi, Iraq in 2005 and 2006. And although we had our share of combat casualties, one thing I am very proud of is we didn't have any of our American soldiers or Marines get killed due to a safety violation. So I really feel very proud about that record.
Because when you think military, some of the exercise you're doing, preparations for being in theater, there's real hazards with that too, because it's kind of a live situation, for lack of a better phrase.
Yeah, no doubt about it. One of the things I did over there is I took an aviation officer, and aviators are very focused on safety all the time, because obviously, if a helicopter has a malfunction, they fall out of the sky, and worse than that. So I took an aviation officer and I made him my brigade safety officer, and it was really key in putting somebody who understood, besides me as the commander, having a safety or having a culture of safety, and putting him in charge of the safety program was a big win for us. And I think that anybody in any civilian organization could think about the same thing. Who in your organization is passionate about safety, and putting that person in charge of your organization's safety program?
And that's a great recommendation, because so many companies, with the best of intention, well, that's a safety guy or safety gal job. Well, you may have an iron worker, someone who works with sheet metal, maybe one of the janitorial staff. They really bring out a passion. I call them the quiet champions. And if they get the opportunity to be engaged and they start sharing their stories, it gets kind of contagious, right? Other people start getting the fever a little bit.
No, absolutely. And I think that's a lesson, is to take one of your best people and put them in that safety office position, because let's face it, I don't care who you are. Nobody wants to see anybody get killed on the work site. Absolutely. So it's worth taking some of your best people and putting them in charge of that safety program.
You're right on target. We're going to go to a brief break. We'll be back. And when we return, we're going to learn about pedaling across the country with about a 15-month-old baby. No joke, and he actually wrote a book about it. We'll be right back.
Safety Culture Strategies provides world-class safety culture and safety program management consultative services for clients throughout the United States. Whether your company is pursuing Voluntary Protection Program STAR designation, ISO 45001 certification, or considering a comprehensive review of your current safety programs and processes, Safety Culture Strategies brings hands-on experience combined with a unique perspective that readily translates from senior management to task-level personnel. This collective skill set provides you with a very insightful health check of your overall safety management system that can also assist with reducing injuries and attrition, as well as increasing profitability. Safety Culture Strategies is also certified to provide Ziegler Institute employee engagement training and leadership coaching. When combined with established relationships with federal and state regulators, Safety Culture Strategies is uniquely positioned to assist the safety culture efforts of any company. For additional information, visit www.scstrat.com or call us at 702-780-1410. After all, every company has a safety culture, but is it the culture you want?
And we're back. We have John Grautzke with us, CEO of Leader Grove LLC. We're going to get John back on screen. So before we get back into this safety culture stuff, which is really cool, I'm referring to your book, The Ride of Our Lives. So just for the viewers, I'm married up. I married my best friend. We've been together over 30 years. Thank you, Mary. And if I said, honey, let's hop in our vehicle and go from around Washington State to Pennsylvania, I don't think she wants to go cross country with me that far in a Jeep. Or if we do, it may not be the most pleasant drive. But as I understand, you and your lovely bride decided to move back to Pennsylvania from the Washington State area on bicycles?
Yeah, Mike, you got it exactly right. Now, this was 1983.
Yes, sir.
Over 35 years ago. And you got to remember, Mike, people our age could remember what 1983 was about. It was an analog world.
Absolutely.
Okay. So there was no GPS that was very handy, no mobile phone, no Google Maps. I mean, none of that stuff existed. And if you wanted to do any research about riding your bicycle across the United States with a 15-month-old baby and one's wife, you actually had to go to the library and check the book out, right? But it was 1983. I had recently left active duty. I left active duty at Fort Lewis, Washington, decided to relocate from Washington State back to my roots in northeastern Pennsylvania.
Right.
And when we were getting ready to relocate, I said to my wife, hey, how about if we bicycle across the United States? And she said, well, what about our 15-month-old son, Stephen? I said, hey, I'll get a bicycle trailer and put him in it, and we'll go together as a family. So it was 3 months on the road on bicycles, over 4,500 miles, a 2-man backpacking tent, 2 sleeping bags, our gear stowed in bags attached to our bicycle, and off we went. And I like to say we were the ultimate thin-skinned vehicles. But even with that, Mike, safety was on the foremost of our mind. Just the equipment we used, PPE, eye protection, helmets, shoulder straps to strap my son Stephen safely into his bicycle trailer. So safety did not go out the window, even though this was quite an unusual adventure.
Very big. And pre-Google, I think we called them a road atlas, sir. The big ones that are about 2 foot tall, right? And you'd have them in the car, and you'd put the little stickies on them. And my wife, she would mark on there the favorite places to stop to go potty because she liked the cleanliness of the restrooms.
Mike, just to digress for a minute, my wife and I spent about a month down south last January, and we would stop in these various gas stations and rest areas. We could not find an analog road map anywhere.
Really?
I mean, they just don't exist. They just don't exist anymore. And so, it's just crazy how things have changed.
Because back when we do road trips, I was that was Mary's job. She's a great co-pilot, and she'd have that big road map, road atlas, and she'd kind of mark where, ooh, here's another 50 miles, a good place to stop. So maybe we kind of think lost some of our connectivity on that. And just in case the viewers kind of overlooked it, you had a 15-month-old baby tagging along with you guys as well.
Yeah, and like you said, I wrote a book about this adventure.
Right.
It was published in early 2020, and the name of the book is The Ride of Our Lives, Lessons on Life, Leadership, and Love. And it's just a fantastic narrative of this 3-month, 4,500-mile journey we took on our bicycles with my wife, Bertie, and our 15-month-old son, Stephen, who, by the way, 15 months old when we started, 18 months old when we finished. So if you do the math, he had spent 20% of his life on a bicycle trip at that point.
And so now he's got like all these interstate decals and stuff you can put on the side of his little unit, right? Good for you.
Exactly.
And now, as I understand, before we get back in the safety culture piece, that you have I think a fascinating story about an encounter with a bull.
Yeah, sometimes we need divine intervention to help, as well as having a good safety risk mitigation strategy. And just real quick, biking over the mountains in Oregon, we were just biking over to Cascades, and we encountered snow, rain, everything up on top, and coming down into a valley. And as we're just about down at the bottom of our descent, getting down into this very lush valley, it was raining, so we had on our our red rain jackets, and a pickup truck. And we saw very few cars on this road, but a pickup truck was coming the opposite way that we were going down this mountain, and he is trying to flag us down to stop. So I keep on going. My wife Bertie stops, and finally Bertie comes down and joins me. And I go, "What did that guy say?" And she goes, "He said, be careful. There's a puddle in the middle of the road." I said, what is that all about? A puddle in the middle of the road. And we're eating some trail snack, and we're looking down the road ahead of us, and there's steam coming off the road. It was misty. And we're looking, there's an image of some this big object coming at us very slowly, and we're staring through the mist and the fog. We realize it's a bull. A bull is coming our way. A bull had escaped from a farmer's field. And so we're deciding, what are we going to do? Yeah. We're deciding, what are we going to do? This huge multi-ton bull coming our way. And we were thinking about trying to bike back up the mountain we had just come down, which wasn't really a good course of action. And again, we had seen very few cars on this road. And then out of nowhere, coming down the mountain is this huge car. The gentleman thankfully stopped, rolled down his window, and he was dressed like a farmer in coveralls and a flannel shirt. And he said, "Looks like you two have yourself in a bit of a problem, don't you?" I said, "Yes, sir, we do."
Yes, you do.
And so he immediately came up with a plan. He said, I'm going to drive my car about 10 miles an hour. You keep your bikes to the left of my car. I'm going to run interference for you, try to keep the bull to the right of my car. And he goes, don't stop pedaling until I stop my car. He goes, it might take a quarter mile, half a mile. He said, but keep on going. So we did that. He ran interference for us. He kept the bull to the right of his car, and we were able to safely get by. And when we finally stopped about a half a mile down the road, I wanted to pull that guy out of the car and give him a big kiss on his forehead. But he would have none of that. He just said, "Hey, you're welcome," and he kept on going.
Wow. Well, whoever you are, sir, thank you so much for your help. And that's kind of that whole thing about a buddy system, right? And be your brother's keeper, and you help out with others. Kind of shifting gears back into culture before we get to the end of this. In your experience, is it possible or recommended as far as ways to act that are effective measures of your overall safety culture performance, or is it more organic in nature?
I think leadership makes a difference. Absolutely. The leader's impact on safety, just as the leader's impact on just about everything else in an organization really makes a difference. An organization will take on the personality of a leader. You could have a really well put together organization and have a sloppy leader come in to lead it, and the organization is going to become sloppy. You could have a sloppy organization, get a well put together leader come in, has his stuff together, and the organization is going to turn around and be an outstanding organization. So again, I think the key is leadership makes a difference. And if the leaders are focused on safety and a safety culture, everybody else will fall right in line. It's amazing.
Okay, so I'll do a little probing question for you, sir. So have you seen some good attributes that could be measured of someone who is an effective leader?
Yeah, I think it all comes out in the results of the organization.
Okay.
And again, it depends what your performance metrics are. You could have certain performance metrics in terms of, how many days off do people have to take because they got hurt on the job, or God forbid, how many fatal accidents there were. I mean, we certainly don't want to see that.
Yep.
But I mean, there are different metrics that you could use, and I think that is a judge of the type of leadership and safety culture that you have. So I don't think it's necessarily, I do think it could be measured. I mean, there could be organic part of it, but I do think it's possible to put metrics together and including leading indicators. And leading indicators could be, are the people working in your organization, are they adhering to the standard of wearing the personal protective equipment? That could be a leading indicator.
You bet.
People are wearing PPE. There's probably going to be less, accidents or safety issues. Steel-toed boots, eye protection, hearing protection, all those type of things. And this is another thing, Mike. This is really where it comes in to the leader modeling the way. And, a leader could set certain standards, but then when the leader comes out to the job site, does the leader have on PPE?
Exactly.
Is the leader wearing eye protection? Is the leader wearing ear protection? If you're expecting the folks who work within your organization to adhere to those standards, the leader has to model the way and show the way and adhere to those standards too.
You're right on target. Otherwise, the message becomes, it's probably not that important. Okay, before we let you get away, sir, because this has been a fascinating episode, looking back over your amazing career, are there a couple of mentors that you would reflect on that really enhanced the trajectory to where you are today?
Oh, there's no doubt. And I will tell you, I think the common theme of the learnings I gained from my mentors was the importance of having integrity in everything we do. So if you make a commitment to somebody, follow through on that commitment. Don't make a promise you don't have the authority to keep. Be honest, be transparent. If the news is bad, get that bad news out to everybody in the organization as soon as you could, because people are smart. People could see that something might not be going right. And if you don't communicate, if you don't communicate properly or regularly and consistently, people are going to start making up their own narrative. And usually it's worse than what the truth is.
Wow. Before we leave, and I got a couple more things to chat about, how do people get a hold of you?
Yeah, my email address is pretty easy. John, John, at johngronsky.com. Cool. That's my email address. I have a website, johngronsky.com. So again, my last name is spelled Gronski. So pretty easy to get a hold of me using my email and also my website.
Perfect. Okay, before I let you leave, so you've had the pleasure to be a keynote speaker. You've done this once or twice. And a standing room only, they were thrilled with your discussions leadership. They're chanting your name. They want your autograph. They want to book you again. It could not have gone better. So what's 2-3 things you hope they write down to take back to their companies to enhance their safety
if I'm going to be talking about safety culture, first of all, leadership makes a difference. That's a real key thing to take down. Leaders have to model the way. I think we talked a little bit about that. And one thing I don't think we really talked about too much in this episode is the importance of what I call, or what we call in the Army, when you're finished with an operation or you're finished with a training event, we do something called an after action review. Some people call it a lessons learned, some people call it a hot wash, but it's really evaluating, hey, what did we do well and what are some things we want to improve? So when it comes to safety, you could do that little after action review to reflect on, hey, and again, you could do this maybe every day at the end of the day at a work site, or maybe once a week at the end of a week at a work site. What are some things we did well in terms of staying safe? And what are some things we want to improve in terms of staying safe in our safety culture? So if you do those three things, I think you're going to have a good culture of safety and really just a good culture of leadership.
And that's phenomenal, because that reference to an after-action report, AAR, a lot of companies, there's always the emphasis when something goes wrong. And when I work with organizations, I says, okay, how do you keep an eye on what's going well? Because you probably want to emphasize the good stuff too. And so I think that type of strategy could help anybody. John Gronsky, it has been an extreme pleasure to have you on the show with us today. Good look on your safety culture journey. I'm not sure if you're going to do another trans-country or cross-country bike ride. And he is the CEO of Leader Grove LLC. So you got to go check him out, johngronsky.com. And John, you have a great weekend, and thank you for being with us, sir.
Mike, it was a pleasure. Thank you.
You betcha. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes this week's episode of Safety Culture Solutions, brought to you by Safety Culture Strategies. I know some people can't remember how to get a hold of Mike. It's pretty easy. You can get on me at safetyculturestrategies.com. You can send me an email, Mike at scstrat.com. Makes it pretty easy. You can also call me at the office, 702-780-1410. Look forward to chatting with you, talking ideas on how to enhance everybody's safety culture journey. And until next time, be safe out there.